We had Glory and Bank Yugi last season, and this season with Posesi being decidedly an established member of Grandmasters at this point. It would follow in tradition to have one of the newcomers, but to have Posesi and Alutemu at the World Finals. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it would be super exciting.
Oh, Posesi, your camera out of focus again. It's a classic. In any case, both players with note takers in the opening is very interesting because it often feels like it's low-key the nuts to play just to give you even more resources with guidance, even sometimes investment opportunity. But I think for Alutemu's case in particular, it's kind of sketchy to keep it because you are not just going to tempo that out on turn 2. You want to make sure it gets some value. Whereas Posesi with the coin, a lot of the time skips his turn 2 anyway. Could go for quest into coin, Dungeoneer into Serpent Shrine, and just have that note taker for later.
Yeah, agree completely. Even if he finds guidance, he could of course coin it out with the note taker on 2 if that were the game plan. Whereas Alutemu was looking for this, ways to spend his mana. Hitting the revolve though is almost always the worst outcome off of one maker. You're really looking for lightning bolt, guidance, investment opportunity, perpetual flame. There's so many better outcomes.
Agreed. Even overdraft just to cycle sometimes, and you know, here and there it can be very effective to unlock your mana crystals. We see some players actually including one of it in other lists, like Surrender a while ago. These two are not, however. Oh, the double flame this early feels kind of bad, but I wonder if he just throws one down towards quest completion.
I think you just chill for the moment. I like this from Alutemu, especially with Novice Zapper in hand. And I mean, even a Revolve arguably could be good with the Perpetual Flames if you need to re-roll on some high health targets. But he's just quite decidedly in the defensive role at the moment, which should suit him just fine for now.
These are absolutely not high health targets. Alutemu could let her rip with one of the Perpetual Flames and be ahead on board with the Feral Spirits, which would overload him for 3 next turn. He could go for a big unlock turn the next turn, but the thing is there's not really a good payout, right? Whether it be a Canal Slogger just to spend that mana or have more ways of generating cards like Guidance. This play from Alutemu I think is correct whether or not he's deciding on getting a big unlock turn the next turn, but he would be very happy to top deck something high value.
Yeah, I guess it's reasonable to assume that your opponent will just play a couple minions, like a Feral Spirit was very likely, and then you can go for Perpetual Flame again and unlock those 5 mana crystals. But as you say, without any immediate payoff, this hand is just not getting there yet. He needs one tempo card to be able to throw down, and he would be fine for the moment.
Even a value card, honestly, if you get guidance to generate 2 things, even if one of those things is like totemic, the thing that buffs your card, and if it's a totem copies it, that's good enough in this situation. Like Alutemu just has nothing to spend his mana on, to the point where I think it's just hero power pass.
Like I want to unlock these mana crystals. It feels like such a waste to not do it now, but I mean, as you say, you're just not doing it on anything. There's no point.
The Revolve doesn't do anything. It makes the Novice Zappers worse if you want to start with those. It can maybe evolve your totem, but that is certainly not worth it. I think Alutemu is just accepting that he's not getting big value from this first overload. Like, to be fair, the first quest can still get value next turn if he top decks something good, because then he could unlock Lightning Bloom, which is still a good outcome. But it really depends on what he gets off the top. Meanwhile, for Posesi, starting off with the option to go investment opportunity if he likes, because he has a good chance to unlock for big value himself.
Right, it's just how he takes advantage of that, because obviously Bloom is the immediate, you know, the most unlocked mana crystals, but what he does with that is a bit of a question mark, actually.
Because it's not guaranteed, he's probably just going to take the 1 unlock from last year. Oh! Looming now.
Setting up for Charged Call. Wow, tempo Charged Call.
Alright. So Posesi is in a position where he thinks he can't necessarily win on value. He says his hand is already low value enough, but little does he know Alutemu's hand is super low value.
Yes, it is, but it's the kind of hand that can actually answer this relatively well. Again, the Revolve, you're very likely to get a worse 6-drop than Cairn on the other side. And then Perpetual Novice Zapper. I mean, you could just go double Zapper, Perpetual Flame, and that'll clear the board completely if you want.
Yeah, the way Perpetual works is that it keeps going even through Death Rattles, the same with Soul of the Forest, etc. So it would clear the entire board, including the Bane. It would overload Alutemu for 5 off of the Perpetual alone. But if he goes for this and then Perpetual, there's a chance that he gets screwed over again by the Order, right?
Yeah, there is.
If he hits the Cairn and then the Bane, immediately things could go wrong. Alutemu was stressed out. I think he wanted to unlock with Perpetual Flame, but there just wasn't a way to do that because he would have to go Zappers first to get the full clear, like we were saying, right?
Yeah, this was not it. This was not the order. You were like, if starting with Lightning Bolt, I think was just wrong always, but you could just go, yeah, okay, he realized it was just a mistake. He could have gone Revolve first. I think it's better to own up to it here than mess up and potentially not clear the board.
Right.
But this was a bit of a disastrous play from Alutemu in terms of the mana that he's overloaded and just wasting a card.
Yeah, you can argue that Lightning Bolt could have still been played here just to get the 3/3 online because there was no way to really dodge the big Perpetual Flame overload, so you could say load on all the mana, but then, load up on the board on the turn when you don't have any mana, but then the Lightning Bolt should have just gone face. So it's 3 missed damage if we want to be generous, but more likely a wasted Lightning Bolt entirely.
Well, Posesi is weirdly enough now in a kind of bad position because generally if you're ahead in the early game it allows you to just accrue a bunch of resources, which he can still do with this note taker plus investment opportunity, but he's not necessarily completing the quest any sooner than Alutemu is. This could potentially just be Brucan next turn actually played for Alutemu, right, if he gets a good draw off the top.
It could be, but I don't see any reason for him to start Lightning Balloon investment because he could still just get Brucan and play it the next turn and not have to contend with the overload immediately next turn. So just take this value trade, go all face. Even though he does literally nothing with his mana, he is just winning.
Certainly looking that way at the moment. Posesi was at 2 out of 3, right? So he would need to play 3 more overload cards before Brucan can come down. And so unless he gets exactly Bloom, even then he'd be overloaded for 4 actually off this investment opportunity. So there's no chance for him to play Brucan next turn.
This turn for Posesi might, I was going to say maybe just Feral and Slogger and then try to go investment Brucan if you get Lightning Bloom like you said, but gonna go Fireheart instead, feeling too far behind on this board. Chain Lightning is decent here.
Not bad. Just to clear off some of that spell damage. Yeah.
I like it.
Ooh, Flame at the end. Yeah, I guess I'm taking that now.
It's just an overload card.
Yeah. It's a good one too.
And because he's overloaded for 2 next turn, right, he can go... Oh, sorry, he needs to play 2 more next turn. I thought it... Oh, wait. With Overdraft, can he just play Brucan next turn? Maybe.
Maybe. The Novice Zapper, again, I think it depends on what he gets.
Right.
Because he'll still need something else cheap. But it's a possibility now, and it's going to be top of his mind, as Alutemu will be completing the quest and playing Brucan on this turn. I like starting with the Bloom and then doubling up on investment opportunity rather than trying to double up on Bloom or any nonsense like that later on. You just need value at this point.
Agreed. And Alutemu has both Guidance still in the deck that will also double up with the Brucan. He is so far in the lead right now. There's one of the Guidances. There's Serpent Shrine Portal. Probably just play the Portal for the clear board here. Or just all face, okay.
Imagine, that is going directly to the dome. The Porcupine, not bad either. A bit of extra burst damage on the Death Rattle.
That's not one of the cheap cards for Overload Posesi was looking for to get to play Brucan, because currently he's at 0 out of 2. If he goes Novice Feral Spirit, he can Overdraft to unlock for 2 more this turn, but then that's 5 mana spent. He'll only have 3 mana left after the fact, I think.
Well, he can go Spirits, Overdraft, Canal Slogger, or the other way around, because it would unlock his crystals up to 8, right?
I think so. But
Which seems pretty good. You can deal 3 damage as well, just to kill off the Brucan, probably.
oh, but it's so awkward the way it works out because, like, if you're dealing 3 plus Canal Slogger, that's overkill anyway.
I guess, yeah, I guess. Maybe you just go Nova Sapper. That's probably cleaner.
So now you go Zapper Overdraft to kill the Brucan with the Fireheart. And
This
then
makes sense.
ET's the 6-3 and has mana to play 1 Maker, I think?
I think so, yeah.
Because he started the turn overloaded for 2, right? Yeah.
Well, that's kind of unfortunate that it killed off exactly his spell damage card there on the Death Rattle.
Yeah, that's unlucky.
Not a disaster.
Healed up for a bit, but oh my gosh, yes, you're taking another guidance. Alutemu, this is value for days.
Do you need 4 guidances? Like, are you supposed to save the Note Taker for more burst that you get off the guidance? I'm not even sure.
The guidance just presents more opportunities to find burst, right? You're not forced to take overload from it anymore. I think it's just right, but
Well, that sucks.
like here, I don't think you take Wind Fury. Okay, you just took both anyway.
That's more like it.
Okay. The only like detriment to playing Note Taker Guidance here is that you only have 1 mana to work with. So if you brick on finding a Bolt or a Perpetual Flame, then the 6/2 sticks around, which is a bit annoying. So perhaps Alutemu was going maximum respect here. But currently, I don't really see any spells in hand that he would want to use with Note Taker.
Yeah, not really. Do you know what is cool, though? Runic Carving's Totemic Reflections, right? Those are totems. You can buff twice. Pretty sick.
True. Oh my gosh, how many flames do you need?
Poor.
Okay, so obviously the Perpetual is Giga Overload here.
Yeah.
So Posesi will just see what he gets from the investment first before he decides on what to do.
Start with the guidance. Maybe you can get Overdraft to unlock those overloaded mana crystals, or just Landslide instead to clear for no overload.
There's a world where you just play, Feral Spirits as well. He has seen double Perpetual, like triple Perpetual even from Alutemu.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So he's not overloaded at all the next turn, and Perpetual isn't even a guaranteed clear because he has a 7/7. Okay.
Oh.
That's a card you want to play with Note Taker.
That will do just fine. Alutemu clapping his hands together in glee like a school child. Adorable.
Honestly, I was wondering if there's any room to revolve this board, because if you take 2 Knolls, take 2 value trades, and with a revolve, you have 2 random 10 drops, all your 1/1s become bona fide 1 drops, and the 7/7's almost certainly going to get smaller because it's a 5/5. But
that is interesting.
maybe that's too fancy. I don't know.
I think this just wins, right? You don't need to mess around with that. Like, you can get 2 more 10 drops. I think that's worth the difference.
Okay, here's a rabbit. The only scary part was if Posesi just has lethal the other turn because he left up too many things, but he's found a rabbit and a ton now. It's a bit scary that Alutemu missed it a while ago.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 positioning as well. Obviously, it wasn't really something he could control, but the fact that it's last card Colossus is huge to play around opposing Charged Call into Rabbit.
Well, even Posesi's positioning somehow is good here because the rabbit can't kill the 7/7 right now.
Yeah, send that face. Come on. Let's end this game.
All right. Okay, this has to be the sickest guidance of all time from Posesi. It's 2 guidances, which can find lightning blooms. There's a lightning bolt as well. Hex, yeah, you take both here.
Torrent?
Charged Call.
Oh my god, is he pulling this one back?
He might. Yeah, all it takes is a rabbit here, I'm pretty sure. Because he can Hex, because there's a small minion left up on the other side, that can go into the Hex minion.
Yep.
If you get a singular rabbit, which is 75% to find at least 1, then that's clearing the 3 minions in the middle. The 7/7 can either trade the 2/3 or go face by that point as well.
So I guess the question is, do you actually Hex it, or do you go Torrent instead? Because you can then trade the Brucan into the second half. Obviously, you lose the 7/7, but you save 3 mana, which can be a big difference.
True. Oh, he hits the rabbit and the Colossus. Now we are talking.
Oh.
Man, I really like the Hex. It saves a 7/7.
Okay, yeah.
And now, the 3/3 that Alutemu sent face is looking like it might have been a big deal if it took a value trade on the one maker. Oi, we're playing Hearthstone in the 5th dimension here. Another charge call. Rabbits for days.
No way. I mean, obviously good positioning again from Posesi. Starting with Revolve, sure, let's weaken that 5-drop and probably the 10-drop as well.
Yeah, anything without Death Rattle is big here, right? Because again, the one maker is making a potential rabbit pretty bad here if Alutemu even gets it.
Trading first to play around, I don't know.
Oh no!
What? What?
I don't know what trading first plays around.
The positioning as well. It plays around rabbit because the taunt's on the side.
I know. Okay. What is mana? Everybody's overloaded, but it's alright. Colossus, okay. No rabbit.
God.
Disaster, just take a 12/12. Sure. He's sometimes safe behind the 7/7, but not really. Posesi has Torrent, Canal Slogger.
Oh my god, this is just turning into a kaiju battle with just 10-drop dragons and monsters smashing into each other.
Everybody gets to play with Godzilla now. But Posesi, I don't see lethal just yet. I'm seeing 18, which is not even guaranteed because the Perpetual has to miss Deathwing. I guess he starts with the investment opportunity. He still has a guidance of his own, which can find him things like Hex, another Torrent, Wind Fury.
I wonder.
But this play is not guaranteeing him to get rid of Deathwing.
Yeah.
Oh my god. If we're going completely safe here and just clear the board, he can go like double Lightning Bolt the Deathwing, Torrent the 7/7, trade over the second half and Perpetual Flame, which will always clear, I think.
Why not just Torrent the Deathwing then, right? It kills it in one hit.
True. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, that's 16. I forgot.
Yes, yeah.
So now it's like Canal Slogger, trade Perpetual. Just seeing if he... Okay. The good outcome-ish?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, both those totems dying is actually a big deal for Alutemu, not being able to copy totems with Rush.
Oh my gosh, did Posesi get the full turn in? This was a super tough turn, but you can see his priority was making sure he could preserve Lightning Bolt and get the 12 face, which he did.
He got it face.
Oh no! Disaster!
So he has to hit Taunt, which would copy it twice?
Yeah.
But he misses. Oh!
Kaiju battle has elapsed, and Posesi rises from the ashes as the victor.
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe that in a Quest Shaman mirror in which you play the call first, and you get 4 or 6 of them played effectively over the course of the game, and you still end up losing somehow, is just absolutely ludicrous. But it shows that Posesi had a backup plan in store the entire way. Such a weird game. Like, obviously there was that blunder in the middle from Alutemu, but this turn still accomplished the same thing. He still swung the game back in his favor, completed Quest first, but the response from Posesi just too strong.
It was insane. I mean, honestly, in this mirror, you play with so many cards that are not in the deck, but you're almost guaranteed to see them, which is just the whole 10-drop minion pool of Hearthstone. I mean, the neutral minions, because Shaman themselves don't have any 10 drops. Which means you always have to think about the interplay of Scrapyard Colossus and the Rabbits. The Rabbits being the only 10-drop that can effectively clear a 10-drop. It's just so interesting how back and forth you can go with that. And in the end, even though Alutemu found ways to deal with this board and the next threat, it was just the fact that Posesi still had extra Perpetual Flames. Those are still strong even against 10 drops because post Brukan, they're effectively dealing 6 damage each.
Oh, and just this one as well was brutal to get those specific 5 drops, upgrading to a Deathwing as well, like the best other 10 drop. heartbreaking for Alutemu.
Crazy to have to deal with it, but in the end, it is a resource battle, as we said over and over, and Alutemu does get to queue a nice favorable into it. The Quest Mage, decisively a good matchup, because it takes a long time for Shaman to really get going with the Kaijus.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, I don't know, Rabbit Ra, as it would probably be called, is not going to be saving you in this one. And it just takes a little bit too long for them all to come online. Overall, the Mage, as you're saying, just getting there in plenty of time. You know, you can try and play the Quest Shaman, at least the start, where you don't play any minions, and like you complete the first tick of the quest all in one fell swoop around like turn 4 or something, but even then they always find a way to play their frost spells. It's so difficult to play absolutely nothing as Shaman so that they can't flurry or brain freeze, and from there you just don't kill them quickly enough.
And I do think it's not even correct for Shaman to actively hold off on playing minions, because Mage will find ways either off of generated minions from primordial studies, etc., to find way to actually target with their brain freezes, etc. I think Shaman maybe stands a slightly better but still not favored chance to get there by tempoing out, playing a lot of threats early. If you can chain Feral Spirits and they don't have Fire Sale, that can be a pretty big deal, and maybe get there over the top with some burn spells, but it's unlikely.
It is unlikely. We'll see how it works out, though, for Alutemu against the Shaman. A pretty much mandatory win, because if he loses, he has to queue up his Priest against the Shaman and then sweep with it, which is obviously very, very unlikely. Not a matchup that you want to be queuing into. But, I mean, even if he does, again, he's 0-1 behind. These players built this identical lineup where it always has a counter queue available with the main archetypes at the moment of aggro, combo, and anti-aggro. And to get things going for Posesi, talking about those high-value, high-tempo starts, well, this is exactly that.
Yeah, that's pretty decent. I'm not sure where the one maker really factors into the curve, because we could just see Quest into Coin Dungeoneer into Portal, which is pretty good. But I'm never upset to see one maker in the opening for Shaman, because it gives you flexibility in case you want to save the coin with Lightning Bloom to actually pop off a bit later. Sometimes that extra mana lets you go for an ultimate unlock turn.
Okay. Perpetual Flame obviously not doing much in the matchup. But just being able to turbo through your quest, it's obviously very rare that you get to play Brukan before they play Varden, but you need to be playing it like absolute latest 2 turns after, probably, you know, the same turn, if you want to have really much of a chance of going for the lethal with Brukan.
Interesting options for Alutemu. Fire Sale is quite good in the matchup because it catches a lot of minions in the 3 health range, but Brain Freeze is the cheapest, which also is a spell school that Alutemu currently lacks, because he drew an all-arcane opening hand, actually.
Yeah, I respect it. I think it's probably good enough against most of the minions they're playing. If they just go Serpent, Shrine Portal, or even Feral Spirit, just Brain Freezing one of them is fine.
Coin Feral looks a bit weird at first because Posesi doesn't necessarily want to be overloaded, but it's max tempo, right? And he still gets to play Wand Maker. You can already see where Posesi's head is at with this matchup, just trying to go for as much damage in the early game as he can get. Oh, wow!
Oh. Now we're talking for Alutemu. Second flow, Arcane Intellect. Of course, once Brain Freeze is played, maybe you play that as well as the Incantus Flow instead, actually. Look, perfect. Brain Freeze, ping, and then you draw through the rest of your deck. It's looking sorted for Alutemu.
And even though this would be the 3rd arcane spell played on the first step, I think you start flow here to accomplish a combo activation for the Brain Freeze, and it also cheapens the the card you draw off of the first quest reward here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you even finish Runed Orb. Although I guess you have a bunch of arcane spells, so tempoing that out probably doesn't help your quest completion too much.
Oh, it allows him to fit an Ice Barrier, though. I think that's totally worth it.
Yeah, now I'm on board.
Oh my gosh. This is a turbo for Alutemu. It could be Varden next turn, depending on what he gets on the Spring Water. Maybe I'm being too ambitious.
It's possible, with his the deck as cheap as it is right now.
Okay, meanwhile for Posesi on stage 1, not really able to keep up with the mage as is expected.
I mean, he's getting close, right? Especially with that Lightning Bloom. He could get through to level 2 being completed very easily next turn. He's keeping up. He is keeping up for the moment. Just about. Well, almost.
The Spring Water has a small failure rate because Alutemu is also running the Spiced Bread Baker, but I think it's perfectly fine to take that risk here. Fire needed, fire found. I see Fire, Arcane, and Frost in hand. I see Varden 1 mana short of being playable this... Oh, sorry, the Arcane spell is too expensive, but Varden enters the hand, for sure.
Okay, yeah, Posesi's not keeping up. I take it all back. Alutemu is just absolutely running away with this game. This is disgusting.
Oh my gosh. Well, the only awkward part is if Alutemu could help it, he'd rather spend Second Flame here as the fire spell, but you have to Brain Freeze to get a Frost spell. So I think... Oh, big deal!
You don't even need... I guess you take Thalnos, actually, because you have second Primordial Studies, so you can probably get it down for 0 mana, but he disagrees.
It's alright. I think... Maybe the plan next turn is Varden Lab Partner Cramp Session for the 5 draws.
That sounds good to me.
Could still do it with Thalnos, but still preserves a Primordial in hand, and he really doesn't need the Death Rattle off of the Thalnos at this point.
So there's never any way to play Brucan on this turn, right? It obviously depends what his quest counter is on, but double Lightning Bloom played Lightning Bolt, it's just not there, is it?
Not enough. Feels miserably slow in this matchup to the point where perhaps Posesi is meant to go for another tempo charged call. It maybe delays them from a Varden turn.
Yeah.
Unlikely.
I mean, you could just go Revolve for the hell of it and Bolt Face. You can go for double Bloom Bolt Face charged call. Okay, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that'll be 7 overload spells played for an 8 drop.
Yep.
Best one, Alakir in the situation? I don't know.
Yeah, Alakir, Proto Drake, just something high attack that's tough to remove. That looks good.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Armor, okay.
Maybe the armor does make a difference, to be fair. If it buys you an extra turn, that's a huge deal. There we go.
There you go. Arden, first flame, second flame, able to get rid of the 8/8 in one fell swoop, right?
It's so sick. I mean, you could probably just get away with Cram Session now, to be honest. Like, your deck is so cheap, there's a good chance that you can just kill it off with whatever you draw.
I kind of like killing an 8/8 for free, but I guess you could even do that with Ignite, right? So, fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if he gets Rune Door, Brain Freeze, First Flame...
Baker.
There we go, Flurry will do it.
Strangely enough, the Ignite is his only face damage in hand at the moment, though. So, perhaps Flurry instead. Okay, gets it on the first try. Maybe he's just trying to not kill the 8/8 whatsoever because of the armor it'll give on Death Rattle.
Yeah, that's actually reasonable. Like, if he has Refreshing Spring Water still in hand, Fireball still in deck, like, it's far from inconceivable that he could kill his opponent next turn.
And going Ignite this turn means that Alutemu is just trying to maximize the chances of drawing Ignite in the near future.
Okay. Man, this has to be the most nutty revolve of all time.
Alakir.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Nowhere near enough, but it's pretty good. Our bar's pretty low, by the way, because the last revolve we saw gave Posesi stats.
Yeah. Man, I've kind of forgotten that Armor Smith was still in the game. After being such a dominant card for so long, it's just completely disappeared.
Okay, here we go. Alutemu just gonna dump some cards to make room for the next cram session. Send that Fireball face. It's not going anywhere else.
It's just, I mean, it's guaranteed lethal, right, with all the card draw he has available. Yeah, Posesi throws it down. He knows it's over. Nothing doing. The counter Q going as expected. And still, it's on Alutemu, despite being one game apiece, to break that unfavorable matchup. He has to win, I think, one unfavorable to come ahead in this series, because for now, Posesi's going to counter Q with the Priest. If he wins with the Priest, all Alutemu has left is his own Priest mirror to get there. So it's not looking great for him. But if he can win a mirror or an unfavorable, it's still able for him to get there.
Absolutely. And we can once again bring up the talking point of Priest and Face Hunter. These are two very similar decks. So what is the thought process for bringing one over the other? And even beyond that, what's the thought process behind bringing a specific version of Priest? Because we do know that the Japanese GMs are opting for the Void Shard version, whereas Surrender a while ago had the Kazakus version, which was maybe with more of an eye towards Druids and Warlocks. But I think the Japanese practice group had the read right that there wouldn't be too much Druid, and they were banning Warlock anyway. So they're just going in on having this Void Shard at the top end to be better against Mage. And in the matchup versus Hunter, I think no matter which version of Shadow Priest you run, you should be favored versus Face Hunter. So that's the reasoning for bringing it, because it wins the head-to-head over Face Hunter.
It does, and so far it's just been looking like a good bring overall. I've liked it against the likes of Mage. I've liked it against the likes of, as you're saying, the other aggro matchups. You've got a good matchup there as well. And even the decks that we haven't been seeing at Q against, Druid, you're going to have a very, very good matchup. A lot of the Warlocks, you can get there before they're able to fight back. So I think this isn't even the best showing of Priest, and it's still been looking pretty good.
Yeah, Alutemu managing to take the unfavorable at the beginning of last series versus Trihison and just proceeding to sweep from there made it look truly convincing. But this opener for Posesi is not really what you want to see. The only card you might think about keeping is Traveling Merchant, but even then I think it's ambitious. You would much rather go wide as possible in the early game, so all the 1-drops, especially Void Touched Attendant, I think are a high enough priority that you throw away a potential 3-mana 4/5, 5/6.
I kind of like the idea that it's not actually Posesi's camera that's out of focus, it's him that's actually out of focus. Like, the further he progresses through the tournament, the more he ascends to another, arcane plane of being rather than our mere material realm.
Right. I mean, as long as he's focused enough to not miscount his mana, I'm all for it.
Quite right, quite right. The Bread Baker in hand already for Alutemu. Well, it's technically what you're looking for, but I don't think quite yet. You just want those removal cards in the early game, in addition to, of course, Incantus Flow, to start doing your own broken things.
Very slow opener for Alutemu, where I think he is meant to just ignite the Frazzled Freshman here, get the fire spell done, spent. It softens it in case he's eventually going to Brain Freeze or Fire Sale. But he's looking to start Cram Session first here. Granted, if you can help it, you'd rather ignite later in the game so that you don't top deck it this early on.
Wow, okay, these are some decent draws for Posesi. The Raised Dead as well. Sure, we'll happily take that to refill if this hand ever gets short. And the Traveling Merchant, again, because this board is very, very resilient at the moment, is likely to come down at least a 3-mana 4/5 in the next few turns.
Both the merchants are really, really strong in the matchup. The Aug Merchant giving Divine Shield on a stick is super strong against a lot of the removal in this meta, because we're not seeing cards of the like of Immolation Aura too frequently anymore. Arcane Missiles long gone for Mage. They often have to deal their damage in one fell swoop rather than small increments, unless they are able to find that first flame. And even then, they often have to expend a ping as well. It's just tough to deal with Divine Shields.
Well, it's a bad start for Alutemu, but it's not a disastrous start for Alutemu. This Fireball is obviously very clean to take out the Traveling Merchant. The Flurry picked up as well gets him towards that level 2 quest completion. I mean, it's possible next turn even with Flurry, Ignite, Cram Session. should he need. Another ice barrier as well. We're starting to get somewhere.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I guess the board doesn't warrant a flurry just yet. Maybe he saves the flurry for level 3, right? Because it looks like the level 2 frost spell will be the ice barrier, but that is a huge top deck for Posesi. Another Augur Merchant can come down here. It's not any high-level threat that he's going to be shielding, but it's just another minion on board for the Merchant to be buffed with. Merchant doesn't get a buff from Dormant Homunculus, so Posesi did have to do this to get the 6/7 right now.
Yeah, very much worth it just to play around second Fireball or, Fire Sail Brain Freeze. There's a few, or I guess, yeah, it would still survive against that. So a few breakpoints that you do have to prepare for. But for now, again, Alutemu, I think it's mainly focusing on his own win condition. Obviously, that comes in the form of stalling with... Man, interesting. Flurry Ignite allows him to complete the quest on this turn. But if it misses that Traveling Merchant, this is looking very scary.
Yeah. I think you are meant to ignite first to maximize the chances of hitting the 6/7. I don't think the difference of odds of freezing a 2/1 or a 1 attack minion matters. It's all about having the chance to freeze the 6/7. He could think about just Brain Freeze the 6/7, but the mana expenditure looks super awkward because then he would still eventually have to ignite, right, to get the fire spell for the quest completion.
I'm taking the risk all day, every day. This is a bad matchup, and I think this is your avenue to potentially win the game in the long run.
Which Augur Merchant? Which Augur Merchant? I mean, it might matter sometimes if you generate a Cone of Cold positioning.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay. Missed out on the Discover, I believe, because of animations, and so he gets given... Wow! Okay, that'll do.
I think... Wait, if you don't get to pick it, doesn't it always give you the leftmost one?
Unsure.
Okay.
Not
Could be
willing
wrong.
to commit, yeah.
But the leftmost was Fire Sail, so I feel like Alutemu did actually have a hand in picking this flurry. But we'll see. Fire Sail wouldn't have been bad in this situation either.
It would have been pretty good, yeah. He does need that fire spell to complete his final level of quest, but for the moment, oh my goodness, these Traveling Merchants, they're a menace.
Yeah. Protected by Divine Shield on either side in case there is a generated Cone of Cold. Alutemu needs some miracles. Flurries can help.
Okay, this is good. He can't play Varden on this turn, but he can set up for it quite comfortably on the following turn.
Can full freeze this board, and if he gets the God Freeze on the first try, he doesn't even have to use the other flurry.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Still has this barrier in the back pocket as well, but probably not going to see use. The priority now is to finish the quest, so still needs an arcane spell played, so I guess Primordial Studies.
Are you ever just going... I guess you go Barrier 1 Flurry, or... Yeah, okay. Because if you're setting up for Varden next turn, you really want to be able to go Flurry again then, right?
True. Yeah, I was thinking the Studies this turn, but it ends up just wasting a bit of mana if you are going to weave in a ping and a Brain Freeze eventually between those two turns. So Alutemu going for it in this way, but Posesi able to go wide. The double mana feeders are huge to keep his resources going. Neophyte enters the hand.
I think that might be a little bit too much for Alutemu. For such a brutally strong start from Posesi, he put up one hell of a fight.
Not over just yet. If he can get the God Flurry.
The God Flurry, the God Bread Baker as well. Okay, I won't call it over.
Here we go. I can't look.
Pew pew.
Either side. Here we go.
Okay. Not bad. He's alive.
Is he?
Oh no, he's not. Oh no, he is. One. One, yeah.
At 1. And there's not room for both Neophyte and Void Touch to come down, which is a strangely big deal.
That's a really big deal, yeah. I guess you probably just jam double Neophyte now, right? You
Yeah.
trade away your Panthera probably throw them both down. I think that just gives you a lock.
Or do you just put Alutemu at 1 and then paying for lethal? Again, Bread Baker is a consideration.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like, both lines win you the game 99% of the time. It's just, how can it possibly go wrong?
Right. And okay, if you don't Neophyte here, Alutemu played a cram session already. So from Posesi's perspective, worst case scenario is cram session for 2 and then 6 mana to work with. I don't think that deals 27. So he doesn't have to Neophyte, I think. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, he's making room. He's killing the Thalnos too.
Yeah, Neophyte. I agree with this line. It has to lock them out of the game. There's no way they can clear enough and heal enough when every spell costs 2 more.
Fire Sale is not enough to clear the 7/8 or the 6/6. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. Alutemu's well and truly out of flurries.
Well, I mean, actually, ping Fire Sale. Oh no, because it would kill the Vard and you couldn't trade in. Yeah.
Homunculus is huge here. Does Barrier give him anything? Barrier and Brain Freeze. He can go up to 16 effectively and leave 14 dead. On board. Nope, dead. So cram session for what? I don't know.
Oh.
The Fire Sale's unplayable, and so is the Ring Toss. So devolving for I don't know. It's not there.
It's just not there. A good effort, but again, the expected matchup coming through. It's what these Japanese players have prepared for. These strong counter cues, these polarized matchups that they've given themselves. It's kind of funny, it hit the 3 worst targets there, even though it was over anyway. And now the counter cue has to come through from Alutemu, but the problem is he lost the Shaman Mirror, so the deck he intended to kill off that priest is out of the way, so he's got to take a mirror and win with that deck twice.
The tall order, but Alutemu certainly has the capability to get there. He did sweep a while ago, and there's really no strict unfavorable for him, right? Because the Quest Shaman's out of the way for Posesi. It's a 50-50 into a favorable if he does manage it.
True.
It does mean that we get to see another Shadow Priest mirror, which I am very excited for, Derek. I mean, we had tons of fun in the first one. I do realize now that the telestrator's not working, so I'm not going to attempt to draw where the trades go, but we can explain how intricate it is. I think the big factor that was missing that oftentimes contributes a lot to the matchup a while ago was the Wriggling Horror. Once one of these players draws it, I would love to see just how they utilize it to get the best trades possible.
Yeah, I love it when there's cards like the Wriggling Horror in the metagame that really dictate how these aggro matchup goes. Like, back in the Kobolds meta when there was Fungalmancer and Bone Mare, right? It got really interesting with how you went face, what you could get away with versus the buff from Fungalmancer or the taunt from Bone Mare as well. And it's kind of like that here as well, because as you said, there's the Wriggling Horror, which can just make all the 2/3s in the deck, which feels like most of the deck is either 2/3s or 3/4s. Like, everything has higher health than it has attack. Makes it so that everything is value trading back and forth forever. Nothing cleanly dies. And Wriggling Horror breaks that that balance that is there. It tilts the scales massively in your favor. But at the same time, while it's good to take value trades whenever you can, as we were saying in the previous series for Alutemu, because he took 1 turn to go face and stop value trading, I think it put the pressure on Trehezen to the degree where he was unable to keep going for these aggressive lines. He had to play on the defensive, and that was inevitably what led to Alutemu's win.
And it's that difference between that early game board control, fighting to make sure you get all the most favorable trades, and then finding the breaking point, the threshold at which it's finally time to start putting the pressure directly to their face. What's the point of no return? It's a really difficult time to identify in this matchup because damage permanence is not a thing when both players are running Void Shard, which has lifesteal. They have the capability to heal for 8. They have the capability to Elucia, sometimes even steal your own Void Void Shard. It hardly gets to that point because I feel the pan out is more likely going to be both players playing as many resources as possible. But it's possible.
Well, both players got themselves what I'm looking like seems to be a pretty good hand. Obviously, Man-Crick, I think, is an absolute keep, especially on the coin. Void Touched Attendant, you always keep in every matchup. The rest of the hand, though, for Alutemu, obviously has the benefit of going first, but it's not quite there yet.
Oh,
that
this
helps.
creates a real dilemma, though, because Void Touched allows you to get the Twilight Deceptor pretty much certainly active the next turn, because Posesi straight up can't kill it. Going second. But if you play Homunculus early, that often gives you a lot of tempo if you're able to guarantee that you have a Wriggling Horror target at some point. It's really close. I think I'm favoring the Attendant just to make sure he has resources, but I wouldn't fault him for going Homunculus.
Oh, I'm Team Homunculus here. I think I would rather have the Dormant in play now, get it awake as soon as possible. Yes, it means you maybe in the worst case lose a card next turn, but I don't know, it gets so much worse if you wait.
Oh, this is the other upshot, I guess, of playing a one-drop immediately. Getting the health on this, you're taking that. In aggro matchups, the longer you can delay having to play your low tempo, gain resources cards, the better, right? Twilight Deceptor, at some point, it's going to get him a draw. It's more important to make sure he doesn't lose a hold of the board right now.
And you know what, to be fair, the downside of not playing Homunculus is obviously its dormant cards get a lot worse if you don't play them for their mana cost on curve. But in the last Priest Mirror, Homunculus is played in the mid and even in the late game was still very relevant. You didn't have to play them on one for them to get there. And so maybe because of that, it leads to Alutemu being perfectly fine with this play. And I'll gladly hold the L on this. In this instance, it looked much better to go for the Attendant.
With that top deck, it really cemented things. The Kulturon Chaplain, making sure that Alutemu has gotten not just the board advantage, but also wider. But now Posesi has this small window, right? Since Alutemu spent 1 mana on something that's not immediate tempo, Posesi can get these tour guides for nice pings, making sure he can fit in his own Neophyte, I suppose, this turn. Neophyte's kind of an anomaly in the matchup, though, because it's like one of the worst ones, dying immediately to a single ping. But sometimes you can time it around if you feel that they're going to go for Thrive in the Shadows the next turn, make that turn a little bit awkward.
Posesi making good use of these tour guides to not have to expend any mana in killing off the Void Touched Attendant.
And the Neophyte is pretty big here because Alutemu can't play Thrive and ping here.
So if you go with Lucia and steal hopefully a 1-drop from them, it's overall a pretty low tempo turn, of course. And they get to go Void Shard.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's not great for them, to be fair.
But I think you still end up behind on board there because even though Elucia gives you a play this turn, she's still 3 mana spent on a 1/3 body, which is something far too slow for these types of aggressive matchups. Alutemu thinking about whether he should take the value trade, which then of course leaves his Deceptor dead to a ping, or if he would just trade into the Man-Crick. There's of course still value to taking VTs if you're okay with forcing your opponent to spend that 2 mana. But in this case, I think Alutemu is just a bit afraid because it looks like he's gearing up for Benedictus next turn.
That's right. His mana is essentially all spent next turn, so you want to make it so the board is as least threatening as possible. Another Raise Dead doesn't have to come down on this turn because you have a good chance of just getting Tour Guide, which isn't especially impactful.
But the thing is, does the Raise Dead pool get better from this point on? If you feel like it's not getting better, sometimes it's better to just rip it before there can be a Cult Neophyte played, get the mana spent, because technically Posesi also has this turn and next accounted for with the Benedictus.
I mean, if there's a Twilight Deceptor that gets in the Raise Dead pool, because he has Man-Crick in the deck, I would say that becomes quite a lot better. But at the same time, maybe the higher chance of just getting another Man-Crick is worth more as well.
Quickly.
It's really close.
Really close.
Okay. Neophyte Mankrik. That is a great outcome for Posesi. It makes sure he has great ways to spend his mana next turn and the turn after.
Yeah, that's huge. I think you can have a decent read as well that they do have some spells in hand, because last turn was just ping pass, and there's few priest hands that are full of minions that would involve just ping pass.
Man, I was looking forward to wriggling horrors this time, but nobody's drawing them. Okay, anyway, the Kultiran achieves a similar role in this situation, allowing the Neophyte to VT over the Homunculus.
It's huge.
Yeah. So can the Twilight Deceptor. Mankrik can come down as well. I think Posesi is okay with the possibility of taking 5 vase here because he pulls so far ahead in terms of minion quantity.
And so then at that point, Alutemu, he probably still has to respect the board more than just going face, because especially if Mankrik comes down here, it's a lot of damage on the other side. But with Void Shard in hand, pings that can go face, like, if you feel like you're losing the board control, you can always just consider at this point in the matchup pointing everything face and praying they don't draw the Void Shards for heal.
Yeah, it can be very much that Alutemu is only out right here, because board control, I guess it's not completely lost, right? Especially with this Kultiran pickup. He can VT the Mankrik, he can put 4 health on his Neophyte, he can ping down the other Neophyte. I think that's quite strong. The Kultiran doesn't force Alutemu onto the completely linear game plan of Void Shard, ping, 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 which honestly probably isn't even that good at this point in the game.
Agree completely. I think that Alutemu correctly realizing things are not that bad for him in terms of board control, but they might be about to get that bad. Void Shard into Mankrik, a 3-mana 3/7 that also attacks face, absolutely busted.
And Posesi picks up the draw from the Mankrik's wife as well, which gets him even more resources with the Twilight Deceptor.
Man.
That's going to pick up Void Shard, I think, or Raise Dead, but more likely Void Shard by this point. He could be setting his sights on lethal across 2 turns. But Alutemu's decision to put the health on the Benedictus, I think, is largely because of the fact that there's a tour guide for Posesi, so it's easy for him to deal 3 damage, so he'd rather protect the Benedictus than the Neophyte here. And his only concern is, if I let this 5/5 go face, is there any way I lose the game?
I think if you pick up a Void Shard, you're just not even really afraid of dying. That's the real benefit of it in this matchup, as we were talking about earlier on. It's the damage, yes, but it's the healing. The swing of 8 effective health between you and your opponent shuts down any aggressive route they can go for.
Oh, he's actually triple trading into the
Wow.
Benedictus. I didn't expect this. Posesi is very confident that the 3/7 Mankrik allows him the leeway to win the game, and this Wriggling Horror top deck is at the worst possible time. Alutemu can pick up Raise Dead from Thrive, maybe get some better targets for the Wriggling Horror. I think that's the only line here.
I mean, would you ever consider Wriggling Horror and then Void Shard to kill off the Mankrik? It allows you to take a VT as well.
Oh,
It's
I
ugly.
hate it.
It's really ugly, but it kills the Mankrik.
I think Alutemu doesn't have to be that worried about his health yet. Very likely he might not even just kill the Mankrik this turn. Missing out on a 1-drop here makes it very awkward with mana expenditure.
Count your blessings, mate.
I mean, at the moment, Posesi is just being more efficient. Like, Alutemu is going for floating mana, whereas Posesi's playing the Mankrik, all this goodness as well. Alutemu, quite correctly, just starting to point everything face.
Homunculus waking up next turn is a big deal too, kind of putting a wrench in the works of Alutemu's all-face game plan. Because what the Wriggling Horror does here, even though it's not giving Alutemu immediate value trades, is it's putting the Kultirans out of range of good value trades from Posesi, unless he has his own Wriggling Horror, which he doesn't. I think Posesi can potentially go face with the Mankrik, draw with the Deceptor. If that gets Void Shard, he can send it into the 3/4 and be pretty happy.
Seems smart to me.
Come, pray with me.
There we go.
I think it's too risky to just drop Benedictus here. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think at that point, I mean, maybe. Probably you're taking a little bit of unnecessary damage there because you can just swing the board back in your favor. Double Void Shard being found. Okay, Neophyte Void Shard ping. If you send everything face, you have 11, which brings your opponent, down to 12, and then Void Shard ping. It's still just not even that close. You need like 3 more pings to get there afterwards.
I'm not seeing it. And if he sends Void Shard into Mankrik, he still has to trade 3/6 into Mankrik, which also doesn't get there. I'm not seeing an avenue to victory for Alutemu, even with the Elucia in hand. But maybe if he needs to survive for that long, it involves killing the Mankrik.
Muzzle their magic.
It's this constant battle of, if Void Shard face is not giving me lethal, where is the next highest value target? Because he has to play it this turn. And the answer is Mankrik, unfortunately.
Right, so you go Mankrik, value trade. Okay, he's going with it this way. Sure, yeah, this is a slight optimization.
Preserves more health on his high attack minion this way.
Yeah. Yeah, he just has +1 health on his call to run over the line. I was thinking of trading.
And for Posesi, this turn is as simple as it gets. 5-1 ping.
It is, and at this point, once again, we're seeing that Mindrender Elucia is just not it in this matchup. It's too much of a top deck war in the late game. Your opponent has to have so much value, or you have to have so little so that you deny them any resources in the mid game. But once it enters this late game stage, it's just doing nothing at all.
Alutemu is forced now to Void Shard ping the Benedictus. I hate it!
I hate it too, but it's not outside the realms of possibility at this point now for Alutemu to swing it back. If he can get Mankrik and then instantly draw Mankrik, then maybe we're talking.
Maybe. I mean, we've entered the point where a couple games ago it was the Kaiju battle. Now we're dealing with the Chibi battle. It's all these 1-drops and 2-drops just smashing into each other. All the Void Shards except one from Posesi's deck, I think, have been played. We can take a look at what's left for him. There's the other Void Shard.
I mean, it's not a great top deck, but it's not a disastrous one either. Just being able to clear off whatever comes down next for Alutemu. It's got a lot of value.
Send it face. He should know this card is Elucia, right? It's been sat in hand for so long. I think you just don't give them the possibility of playing the Void Shard. I don't know.
It's a good point. I didn't really think of that. It couldn't realistically be anything else, could it? Like, Void Touched Attendant is the other card that you might not play if you're behind on board. But I think Alutemu hasn't been that far behind for the entire game, right? You would just rather have a 1-3 and tank a little bit of extra damage.
Posesi just thinking, what if Alutemu's next top deck is Mankrik? Then he wants a Void Shard to one-shot it.
Yeah.
But by that point, I don't know. I think Elucia is too much of a threat to... And even if there is a Mankrik, right, he has this Void, this Homunculus waiting. Oh no! It just gives something Divine Shield!
It's such a small difference in board control. Like, Posesi is not that far ahead, but it just makes all the difference in the world. Alutemu needed the nuttiest top decks to pull this one back.
Yeah. The fact that the pan out was this even and won by this small of a margin goes to show how much the players understand the matchup. If one person runs away with it, it just goes to show that either they drew terribly or they have very bad understanding of the fundamentals of Hearthstone. It so happened that both players, I think, played very, very well here, but Posesi had the Mankrik and Mankrik's wife, which you just can't beat. It's more resources if you don't have your own.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Alutemu with a bit of a rough mid-game as well. Again, like going ping pass on turn 4 with no other cards to play is just awful. As now he's saying, right, my deck sucks, you play with it, Posesi. It's given me nothing but bad draws. Hopefully it'll do the same for his opponent.
But the sad thing is, Alutemu's average top deck, I think, is better than Posesi's by this point, because there's still a Mankrik.
Yeah.
And the traveling merchants. That's a big deal. Both of them have 2 merchants left in deck. Okay, that's a low roll.
That is a low roll, and so for Alutemu, again, we're looking at... I mean, Traveling Merchant is good just because you can trade it. It's, you know, I don't think you're going to be playing that here. But it just has to be Man-Crick, right?
Or Raise Dead for very high value targets like Benedictus at this point, I think. Okay,
Oh, that's
pretty
good. Yeah, that's good.
3 pings, a tour guide, I guess.
Yeah, probably the tour guide because of Raised Dead. You'd rather give them that than a freshman.
It's all so small margins. I'd even hear argument for pinging the Homunculus because it's the highest attack target and you're gonna have to get through it one way or another. Alutemu's facial expression is looking sour and that's one of the worst outcomes here. But you know what? He's not dying in 2 turns time the way this is going. Oh no! Maybe he is.
Yeah, that is a good top deck. It's only 2 mana when you obviously have 10 to work with. But it's just so much stats for this point in the game in a pure top deck war.
It's the VT.
I must consider.
Oh man. It's
No
all
more
slipping
void
away
shards.
for Alutemu. No more void shards. This damage is permanent.
Yeah. It's looking like it is slipping away. As you said, it needs to be that miracle for Alutemu, or Posesi will go 5-0, clean sweeping the week through to being our week 2 champion.
Of course it goes on the Homunculus, right?
Oh, it has to.
And then you can send everything face as well, because Alutemu doesn't have access to Void Shard anymore. There's no punish. The mana feeder has to go into the 3/6 anyway. If there is a Wriggling Horror, it's only buffing 1 minion. So.
Just Merchant would get +1/+1, but I really don't think that even matters.
Oh. Now this to me looks very weird because you've just created a better ping target for Alutemu in the 2/2.
Yeah, that was a bit
I don't know.
I mean, you can trade it, but there's nothing better in the deck, to be honest. That's the best thing that you can draw is a 3-mana 3/4.
Fine purchase.
Raise Dead is better, and even though it's 1 out of like 11 by that point, I think Raise Dead was Alutemu's only small chance to win the game, so I don't begrudge him saying that the 3/4 isn't good enough.
Fair enough.
Ends up with probably the worst outcome.
Oh my goodness. Man-Crick number 2. Yeah, that is just going to wrap it up. Posesi is our week 2 champion. Alutemu, well done. You gave it a jolly good effort. But Posesi, in his signature adorable fashion, is giving us the kind of victory cam that only he can.
Leaning back. I'm glad it was just the headphones that fell off and not him falling out of his chair. I don't want Posesi to be injured, even though we do come to expect quite a lot of humor from our APAC Grandmasters. That was hard fought in this mirror that is so intricate in the early games. Once you pull ahead towards the mid game or come out with the Man-Crick's wife and your opponent doesn't have it, it starts to stack up. The difference is a little bit too much for Alutemu to overcome there. I think outside of that last Wriggling Horror, I didn't see anything I would question from Posesi.
Yeah, I agree. But the main thing I want to take away from this isn't necessarily the play from Posesi, which I do think was, you know, pretty spot on for the most part today and yesterday as well. It's just the lineup building. The fact that we had Alutemu and Posesi with identical lineups, both in the finals. Trahezen with essentially the exact same lineup, a couple of minor tech card differences. It just shows that they have absolutely dominated this week of Last Hero Standing. Like, the worst performing player was Oka Shinsuke, who I think actually had a different lineup from the rest of the Japanese players, right? And so it just goes to show that once again they understand these metagames at the drop of a hat. They know exactly which way to go, and because of that, they continue to dominate.
Yeah, very, very cleanly done, and it means that Posesi gives himself another full 5 points after having, of course, the head start of 5 from his legacy of last season's win. It's the perfect way to make sure that he is not